Okay, so we'll start the first one there. So this is the sine rule finding a missing angle, and we'll just redraw that. So when we're doing these questions, it's always good practice just to draw them out, because if you draw them out, it helps you to visualize what you're looking for and helps you to visualize what you need to do. So in this case, it's asked you to find the value of A. So you're looking for the value of A, which is going to be here. You're given 15 here. You're given 25 here. You're given 50 here. And you're given the value of C. Well, we don't have a value for C, so the value of C there isn't really going to help us, because when we're using the sine rule, it's up a side opposite an angle and a side opposite an angle. So this value C here was just thrown in just to give you something to think about. Some people would think that I need to include this in my solutions. A lot of the time in the leaving cert, you're given extra information, and the extra information is just more to see if you're able to apply what you know, right? So sine rule is equal to A over sine A is equal to B over sine B. Okay, so you should know the sine rule is A over sine A is equal to B over sine B. And we'll have a look at that there, right? So when you're using the sine rule, you just need to make sure that you have opposite sides and opposite angles. So I'm going to pair these two together first of all. Okay, let me just do that again. And I'm going to pair these two together. Okay, so all the sine rule means, right? So if you look at the sine rule there, so I'll just actually rub out the sine rule and bring that down. So if you look at the sine rule there, it says A over sine A is equal to B over sine B. And all that means is that a side opposite the sine of the corresponding angle. So say I went with these two. Okay, so I've got a side over sine of the angle is equal to B, which is a side over sine of the angle. So a side over sine of the angle. And it's just important that we're putting them in right. So the capital A always represents the angle, the lowercase always represents the side. Now, like I said in the last question, if I was doing these, I always try and keep my unknowns on the left-hand side. So if I look at this, I'm trying to find the value for A. So I'm going to put my green terms in my first fraction. Okay. So to do that, we need to put in what A is first, and A obviously represents, lowercase a represents the side. So the side in this case for the greens is going to be 15. So 15 all over side of, or sine of the angle, and the angle for the greens is A. So sine A. And that's going to be equal to, so I'll just put in equals to, and now I'm looking at my second fraction. So B in the second fraction is represented by the side. So in this case, it's going to be 25 all over sine B, and sine B in this case is going to be sine of 50. Okay, so you can see here we have a fraction equals a fraction, and you might remember from the last time I said that if you have a fraction equals a fraction, it makes things easy because all you have to do is cross multiply. So I'm going to cross multiply, which means I'm going to multiply my numerator from my first fraction by my denominator in my second fraction, and my numerator in my second fraction by my denominator in my first fraction. That all sounds complicated, but if you just look at what you're actually doing, you're going to multiply this by this, and you're going to multiply this by this, and your equal sign is going to stay in the middle. Okay. Now, just based on what I've been doing the last couple of questions, like I always say to you, just out of habit, I try and keep my unknowns to the left-hand side. So because I like to keep my unknowns to the left-hand side, I'm going to do these blue ones here first. Okay. So the blue ones there will give me 25 times sine A. Okay. So that's the blue ones done. So now I'm going to do the red ones. And the red ones there you can see are going to be 15 sine 50. Okay. So just look at it and see the goal here is to get a value for A, and we can see there at the minute that A, sine of A, is all wrapped up over here at this side. And sine of A, I'll need to isolate the sine of A first of all, and then after that I'll be able to isolate the A. So if I put sine of A down here, sine of A, I'll just leave that there. Okay. The operation that's between these two terms here is times. So at the minute what this means is 25 times sine of A. Okay, 25 times sine of A. If I want sine A by itself, which I do, I'll need to get rid of this. And how I get rid of this is I need to divide the left-hand side by 25. Because if I divide the left-hand side by 25, the 25 will be gone, and I'll just be left with sine A. But it's important that we realize that we're dealing with an equation. And if you're dealing with an equation, if you divide the left-hand side by 25, that's fine, as long as you divide the right-hand side by 25. Okay. So now we can look at where we're at. Okay. We are looking for a value for A. So again, I'm going to just highlight what we're looking for. I'm obviously highlighting this for the sake of explaining stuff. You won't need to highlight it. So if I want to get A by itself, I need to get A by itself because that's what the question asked me to do. It asked me to find the value for A. So here you can see that we have the sine of A is equal to this. I don't want the sine of A, I just want A. So to get A by itself, I need to do the inverse function here. And the inverse of sine is sine inverse. And sine inverse is sine -1. And it's obviously going to be of everything that was up here. So I'm going to bring that down. And I'll just put it in brackets because I'm getting the sine of that function there, or of that fraction there, right? Just for the sake of ensuring that you're putting this right into your calculator, we'll go into the calculator and we'll have a look. So if we go into the calculator there, I'll just bring the calculator over to the side so that we can see what we're doing. And we'll type this in, right? So, and that should be fairly okay to see from there. Okay. So what we're going to type in is, obviously we're going to have to type this in here. So we need to put in the sine inverse of this fraction here. So start by turning on your calculator. If your calculator is already on, just make sure and clear it. And it's important that when you're dealing with trigonometry that your calculator is in degree mode. So you have to make sure it's in degree mode. If it's not in degrees, so if there's not a little d up there, just make sure you press shift, mode, and press 3. So you can see degrees comes up there as 3. And then we can put this in. So clear your calculator again, and we'll put in sine inverse. So we're putting in the sine inverse. You can see sine inverse here is this button here. So it's the second function of the sine button. So you have to press shift first, then press sine. And now we need to put in the fraction. So we're going to press the fraction button. We're going to press 15. We're going to press sine of 50. And I'm going to close those brackets. And that's all over 25. I'm going to push out and close those brackets and press equals. So my answer there is 27.36. Okay. So I'll write that answer in. The answer is equal to 27.3630 1956. Okay, and because it's an angle, typically they ask you to round angles to the nearest degree, so I'm just going to round that off to the nearest degree. So draw a line, look at the number that follows. In this case it's 3, so my answer here in this one is going to be 27 degrees. Okay.